All right, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar is how retail companies benefit from an AI data analyst. So before we begin, we're just going to quickly explain who is Zenlytic. So who is Zenlytic? Zenlytic is the world's first self-serve business intelligence platform designed to transform how companies interact with their data. It combines intuitive dashboards, self-serve exploration, and a powerful generative AI data analyst, making it accessible for both data experts and everyday users. So for today's agenda, we are going to introduce our hosts. Then we are going to go into the problem with traditional BI. We will then introduce Zoe, go through a product demo, and then do our questions and answers. As a reminder, you can ask any questions through the Q&A chat bot at the bottom, and we will respond accordingly. So going into our introduction today, so we have Zach. Zach is our solutions engineer at Zenlytic with a passion for AI with business intelligence. His background is a data analyst in finance and web analytics. Before joining Zenlytic, he worked at Tableau, helping Fortune 100 companies expand BI usage enterprise-wide. And our other host is Drew. Drew has been in the tech industry throughout his career and joined Zenlytic 2 years ago. And he will be leading the start of today's session. With his experience and passion about addressing the challenges that businesses face when it comes to making data more accessible to all users, regardless of technical background. And my name is Ashley. I am your moderator for today's session, and I am leading marketing at Zenlytic. So from here, I'm going to pass the mic over to Drew to talk about the problem with traditional BI.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. So what is the problem with traditional BI? And I'd say, there's a handful, but the one that we're really focused on today is that traditional BI isn't that easy. For as much as business intelligence platforms have loved over the last 15 years to say that their solutions are low code, no code, easy to use, the reality is that most people actually aren't self-serving. And we know this according to the data, right? Like Deloitte recently put out a survey finding that 67% of people aren't comfortable using their BI tools today. We think that comfortable actually sets a really low bar, and that number is higher. But that's kind of, what the market data shows. And we believe that's the case because to most people, this is what business intelligence feels like to them. If you are a data expert and you have a perfect understanding of the underlying data structures and you have all the different, you know how all the different bells and whistles work with the existing BI platforms that you use on the market, then you can get tremendous value out of the BI platforms that exist today. But if you're not a data expert and this isn't your day-to-day, if you're a marketer that's just trying to understand how, the campaign performance is going to inform your strategy, and the dashboard doesn't have all that information right there ready to go, then oftentimes data exploration starts with emailing someone on the data team and saying, hey, Billy, I need a new report, or I need this number. Can you go and generate that for me? But this is a costly game of data telephone, where business users aren't able to get the insights on their own and need to rely on the data team as the middleman. And why is it costly? Well, it's costly because the dashboard versus modern world speed is almost comical. The median Uber wait time is 2.5 minutes. The world's longest flight from New York City to Singapore is 18 hours and 40 minutes. International door-to-door shipping from the UK to USA is 48 hours, and the average wait time for a dashboard is about 4.5 days. For companies that want to be data-driven, to have 4.5 days of time between a business user that's trying to get some data to make a decision and the data actually coming to them, that's not good enough. And that's obviously a problem for the business users, but there's also a cost on the data team. The data team who are receiving all these ad hoc questions and forced to answer them, there's a burden. 67% of them can't find time for profitable ideas. 92% of data workers lose time on non-role related tasks. And the big one is that 50% of the data budget is wasted on ad hoc tasks that happen across the organization. And we've tried everything to solve this, right? Onboarding sessions, data stewards, data champions, office hours, guides, and tutorials. We've tried everything to make these complicated interfaces and solutions make sense to the business. But the reality is business people who are busy on their own day-to-day operations, they don't have time to get perfectly well-versed with your Tableau or Power BI instance or whatever other solution they're using. And instead, what happens most of the time with any of these kind of things that we try to do to enable the business with data is that they still come back and they ask the data team questions. And they say, hey, I get it. I went to the office hour session last week, but I still want to see this data a little bit differently. How can I do that? And so those questions still pile up. People are still left waiting, and that needs to change. So how do we see it all differently? Why at Zenlytic do we think we can be the one that kind of solves the holy grail of BI, which is making it self-serve? Well, we believe data needs to work the way humans already work if you actually want to enable self-serve. What does that mean? It means that the same question that you'd otherwise send in an email to an analyst or tap them on the shoulder at the office, you need to be able to ask in the same way you'd otherwise ask that person and get a meaningful response back. And with large language models, this is now definitely possible, right? I don't even think that this is that provocative of a statement to say that the default interface for data will be natural language. And that's what we're enabling with our solution. With agentic business intelligence, you have a solution where you are kind of interoperating the standard BI experience with a semantic model and a large language model to make BI secure, correct, but also easy, like everyone kind of expects it to be in 20 or almost 2025. And we have customers that are using Zenlytic and kind of finding these same sorts of benefits. One example is Branch Furniture, who before Zenlytic had very kind of fragmented data landscape. They had no real central analytical view of the business, and they had all these disparate systems that for the marketing team and the sales team and the product teams became too complicated to kind of use on their own. And so whenever they had a question, they'd have to reach out to Dana, who was their analyst and leading the data function, to ask her to answer every question. But that meant very, very slow time to insight. That made Dana was constantly bottlenecked, couldn't focus on the more important initiatives, and it wasn't working. And so with Zenlytic, they have a self-serve solution that makes accessing data simple, fast, and reliable, which is good. And we've spoken a lot about what kind of the promised land looks like, but now I'm going to turn it over to Zach so he can actually walk through how we've kind of enabled that in real life. So Zach, I will pass this over to you and let you take it for a spin.
Thanks, Drew. I appreciate it. So for those of you who are on the call, a lot of you must be thinking, yeah, right, no way. And this was my experience too. When a recruiter reached out to me to join a company called Zenlytic, who promised self-service. And I was thinking, okay, as soon as I got my first license at Tableau 10 years ago, I was doing self-service analytics. But I was a data analyst. I was an expert in using it. The people who weren't experts, those were the business users, were constantly asking me, Zach, I have another question for you. Could you create another dashboard for it? So I was constantly creating more dashboards. So what I'm going to go through in this demo is exactly how Zenlytic, especially with Zoe, is a true self-service platform, a whole entire BI platform using AI. So for the demo, I'm going to have this problem statement. I'm taking on the persona of a VP of marketing at a retail company called Pure Organics. And my CEO just pinged me and he said, hey, Zach, I need you to put together a 2025 budget for the marketing department. We need to allocate money to increase our sales growth rate next year. So my question to myself for the team is, how can I allocate budget to optimize for that revenue? And how I'm going to approach it, how I'm going to solve that is by using Zenlytic. And there's a few different things I'm going to be doing for this demo. First, I'm going to ask the AI data agent, Zoe. I'm going to be asking a data question and also a business type question. And I'll explain the difference in a little bit. Then I'm going to head into traditional BI So as if I were using Tableau or Power BI, slicing and dicing metrics. And then I'm going to go into something that's retail specific, creating a website funnel. This is very heavy in the retail industry, and it's a native feature within Zenlytic. The last thing I'll do is assembling a dashboard, sharing it with AI. We firmly believe dashboards aren't going anywhere. It's just one piece in an overall BI strategy. So let's start at the beginning. I want to have a conversation with my data, and that's what I'll be showing. Now, when I say I'm having a conversation with my data, this isn't a metaphor, such as in Tableau, asking a question and then playing around with the metrics to ultimately get a visualization. I am literally going to be asking Zoe, the AI data agent, a question, and there will be two of them. So a data question first. And so let's start right here. Hey Zoe, I need to figure out which products to advertise more. Can you show me our year-to-date sales compared to last year, broken down by product? And so again, literally, I'm asking a question out loud verbally. And what she's doing with this question is she's interpreting my intention and how she could possibly answer it. And to do that, she has to go through the data model, the different metrics, the different dimensions that I may or may not know about, but she has full access to. And from that, she determines what it would be most relevant. So I asked for my sales, and she found, hey, there's nothing called sales, but there is a total gross revenue in your data. And I found product title. I didn't need to know the names of these fields for Zoe to return this answer. So right here, I'm getting that breakdown of the current year sales and the previous years for year to date. And there are very particular products that are selling a lot more, such as this one, Everyday SPF Grid. So hopping back here, what did I do? Without knowing where I should be looking in the data, needing to find the right dashboard, or even having to go to a data analyst and say, hey, could you make me a new dashboard? I don't know how to use this tool. I was able to just ask a question and get an answer, just like as if I was talking to a colleague. And like a great data analyst, Zoe detailed out her plan and showed me the data she would use without me needing to know the names of those fields. All right, what we're going to hop into now is I'm going to ask a business question, something that's a little more open-ended. So the problem with the data question is it's the way that data people like me tend to ask questions. Hey, can you give me this metric, slice it by this dimension? And it's also the way that I prefer as a data analyst for business users to ask me questions. But from what I found, it's not generally how business users ask questions. They tend to ask questions in a more natural conversational way of the business, not of the data. So I'm going to ask something a little more vague this time. Hey, Zoe, I'm the newly joined marketing VP at a retail company, Pure Organics, and the CEO just pinged me, and he wants me to put together a plan for our marketing budget in 2025. Now, my goal is to increase our sales growth rate, so I need to determine what the most efficient marketing channels would be for me to allocate budget to. Could you help me out? So this is a much more open question. This isn't the type of question that I would generally ask a data analyst to say, hey, could you put a dashboard, this metric, these dimensions? This is the type of question I might ask someone at Bain or McKinsey to come up with a strategy for me. So Zoe's going through the data saying, hey, I'm seeing some certain metrics you might want to look at first. This is how you're currently advertising, my total marketing spend and total gross revenue. And these are the given channels. Now, this is a start. It's a great launching point. But Zoe, I care about which of these channels would be the most efficient. Are there any metrics on that? And I can ask follow-up questions as if I'm talking to a real person. I ask a question, get an answer, ask another question, and I get into the state of real analytical flow where there's nothing in between my ability to ask a question and get an answer. So now that I've asked about efficiency, Zoe found, hey, there are some other metrics that are probably going to be good indicators for that. ROAS, which is the return on advertising spend, for example. And she's putting all of those into this particular chart, where I think what she's charting for this one, if I head into the table, is ROAS, PROAS, and CAC. Now, I think all I care about ROAS and PROAS because those are efficiency metrics. And I'll chart this right here. Great. So what this is saying is Facebook has the highest ROAS. So for every dollar I put into Facebook, I will get $5.50 back. Great. So this is a great launching point. And what I'll say is, Zoe, could you please put all the visualizations into a dashboard called Zach's Incredible, completely originally thought of marketing budget for 2025. Now I'll pause here. I'm seeing that there's a few questions coming in. Ashley, could you read one off at the top?
Yeah, it says the first question we have is a question on accuracy. It says, I hear that using LLMs to generate insights like this lead to a lot of hallucinations, which kind of decredits all the work that our data team does. How do you all protect against that?
Okay, very, very good question to be asking. For those of us who have used ChatGPT or Claude to generate SQL statements based on our data, I'm sure as everyone here has found, it's not right all the time. And even if it were right 90% of the time, if I were to get 10% of my answers back to my head of department and they were wrong, I wouldn't have my job anymore. So this is an important question to be asking. Zoe is not a text to SQL tool. So the LLM underneath the hood is never going to be writing arbitrary SQL. In between the LLM and the database is what is called a cognitive layer, in this case, a type of semantic layer. And this semantic layer clearly defines every single metric, all of the dimensions and what they mean. So the LLM only needs to be able to interpret questions and put together a plan on how to answer them. So for example, in this one chart, if I were to hover over this ROAS, I could see that it has a clear definition. So return on advertising spend is the total advertising revenue over the total marketing spend. This is a previously defined metric. It's going to be programmatically generated every time, deterministically. There will never be arbitrary SQL. So this is how Zoe is never going to lie to users and it'll always be 100% right. Now, she could still misinterpret questions like a data analyst could, but that's easy to adjust and ask for another result. Great question. So we've covered how to interact with an AI data agent called Zoe. Now I want to hop into traditional BI because Zenlytic is a full BI platform and this is just one piece. So using normal BI to slice metrics. Coming back to this question, Zoe generated my dashboard for me. So I'm going to hop in here. And what I get are all of the visualizations and tables that she generated. I will, let's see, I'll clean this up a little bit by deleting a couple of these later. But I get these metrics, the ROAS, for example, as well as which products have the highest revenue. Now, I'll be investing more in marketing for these products and I'll be spending more in the Facebook marketing channel, but I need to know, should I be investing money into Facebook year round or only particular weeks of the year? So I'm going to open up a new Explorer and use traditional BI this time. So on a weekly basis, I want to get an idea of the return on advertising spend. And I want to do this specifically for all marketing channels. I want this broken down by marketing channels to see if Facebook is always the most efficient. All right, so I get this line chart. I see that Facebook is, for all of these weeks over the past 90 days, it's been the most efficient. And if I change this, I'm going to do this since the entire previous year just to make sure that year round I should be investing in Facebook. I'll get this new chart where Facebook, again, is always the highest. So I know I could be putting more money in here year round. I'm just going to edit the chart to be a area chart so it's a little clearer. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this to my dashboard because I want to be sharing this out later. So I'll save this to my dashboard. That is called Zach's Incredible, completely original thought of marketing budget for 2025. Great. So what did I just go through? Now I use traditional BI where I started with a question and I got to an answer by slicing metrics up. And I was still able to get to an answer. So we have both pieces in Zenlytic. What I'm going to hop into next is something that is very specific to retail. In a traditional BI tool like Tableau, creating a funnel is an extremely daunting, complex task. I remember being in a room trying to work with some analysts on it. The people who were power users in Tableau could easily follow along. Everyone else's eyes were glazed over because you had to create custom calculations. So this is only a few clicks in Zenlytic. So I'm going to create another question here. And this time, instead of this Explorer, I'm going to create a funnel. And what I'll select here is I care about my number of sessions for across my website. And I want to get a sense of, for all the users that visit the website, what is the efficiency in actually buying a product? So there's a few steps in this funnel, such as visiting the website to start out. And then before the actual purchase is made, I need to know that it's actually in a cart. And then between it being added to the cart and someone actually deciding, you know what, this is worth my money, I want to see that too. So I'm going to run this to see how efficient I am. All right, so I can see that 36% of the people who visit the website add something to their cart. And then only 72% of the people who do add it to the cart actually make a purchase. So a question that I have is, it this efficient? Is it this efficient for both desktop and mobile devices? Because I want to know, should I really be spending ad spend equally across the two different channels? So I'm going to slice this up by device type. And instead of just the number of sessions across the whole website, I care about this specifically for every Facebook channel. So I'm going to choose the marketing channel only for Facebook because this is where I'm going to be advertising. So after this filter, I'm going to save it and run it as is. All right, great. So what I'm seeing here is for both mobile and computer, there's a 36% conversion rate. And for completing a purchase, there's a 72%. So there's no difference. But what I am seeing is there are far fewer sessions on mobile. And given more people on a day-to-day basis use their phones than an actual desktop computer, there's an opportunity to invest more into mobile ads. We're not being as efficient as we could be. So I'm going to add this to my dashboard as well. All right. So what I just went through is, in a traditional BI tool, this would have taken me a long time. In Zenlytic, this was a few clicks to create a whole web funnel. Now I'm seeing there's a lot of questions now. I got to catch up on some of them. Ashley, could you please read one off the top?
Yeah, I think we'll go with the semantic layer question. I think that's the most important based on what you're talking about right now. It says, you say that you employ a semantic layer. We've had challenges in the past with them being complex and taking many quarters or years to implement. How does yours different from what we may be used to? Hopefully that makes sense with my stuttering.
Yep, great question. I could see where that was coming from. So the first question was about, hey, how can we trust this? And what I was going through is Zenlytic is not a text-to-SQL tool. It's a BI platform with a semantic layer. Naturally, someone here has worked with semantic layers with tools like Looker, and that could be a daunting task. That could be a lot of work. So in Zenlytic, if you have a semantic layer already living in a place like LookML in Looker, or in DBT, like DBT metrics flow, we could port that over immediately into Zenlytic without any work involved. So that's one thing up front. The second thing is, if you do not have a semantic layer, when you are setting up Zenlytic and you decide, hey, these are the tables that I want to bring into my data model, my semantic layer in Zenlytic, there's an LLM assist where Zoe, the data agent, will be able to go through those tables and automatically add metrics with detailed descriptions based on those columns and tables. And that will generally get 75 to 80% of the way there. The rest is an iterative process. So we don't need to boil the ocean at once, starting with a few tables. And as use cases expand, then we put those new tables in.
Got it.
Like,
And
great
Zach,
question. Yeah.
I know there's a question that people ask a lot, and that is, why doesn't the LLM take it the full way? Right? You said that the LLM in the onboarding process can get you 75 to 85 yards down the field. Why not just rely on the LLM to take you to the end zone?
Yeah. Great question. So I could frame this a couple different ways. Before, when I was talking about LLMs in text to SQL tools, they get things right probably 85% of the time in the ideal type of environment. And they'll be wrong 10 to 15% of the time. That's not good enough. So without a second pair of eyes, without someone who knows the data model, that could be a risky thing to do. The second thing is sometimes the tables and the columns don't really have helpful names that an LLM could take advantage of. So for example, the column might be named gross revenue, and that's really easy to interpret for an LLM. The same column in another table might be labeled X_1, and that will make it a lot more difficult. So that's why we would always want at least a human involved at some level, but we want the LLM to assist. LLM should always be treated as a coworker rather as someone to replace our jobs.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks for the follow-up of that. So the last part that I want to touch on is assembling a dashboard. You know, at Zenlytic, we believe that dashboards are never going to go away. This is always one piece of this. So I want to take everything I did and put together a dashboard and create an AI summary for that. So I'm going to head to my dashboards. This was the one I originally created. And I'm going to tidy this up a bit. So I have some new things that I added. I'm going to go and edit, get rid of a few of these redundant visualizations. All right, and this is a good place to start. So from here, I want to make a few adjustments, and I'm going to edit this one question. I have these metrics that I care about, and actually, let me hop to a different one. I'm going to hop to this one. Now, an example for this one is maybe I care about this being as a percent of 100 for each one of these. I'm going to adjust that here. We're going to 100%. And maybe I care about another one of these dashboards. I'm in a spooky mood because it's October. So I'll say, Zoe, could you make this Halloween colored? And so this was with an AI assist, and I was able to make formatting changes this way. So I'll confirm this change. Everything looks good. I'll save those edits and finally refresh the dashboard. This one loaded in pretty early because it was already cached, and I have this dashboard down here. So I'm good to share it out. I'll schedule this report. And as part of setting this out, I'm going to include the PDF. And I could send it weekly, 9 a.m. I could choose to go over email or Slack. I'm going to send this to myself, so I'll be able to share it with others later. And finally, I'm going to give Zoe a little bit of a nudge on what to talk about in her AI summary. So I'll say, Zoe, make sure to talk about which channels, devices, and let's say products we should invest more ad spend in. And she'll create an executive summary. So I'll send a copy to myself right now. And here was a one she previously generated. She's giving the same AI summary saying, hey, you should be investing in Facebook and as well as the product everyday SPF. And here is my PDF. So wrapping up, this is everything I want to go through on Zenlytic as a total BI platform. I was able to ask an AI data agent multiple questions for true self-service without needing to know anything about how to use a BI platform, what data I have, where that data resides, or needing to bother a data analyst. I did traditional BI to slice those metrics, create a website funnel in just a few clicks, and assembled a dashboard and was able to send that out with AI. So I hope this was a great summary of the small amount of things that Zenlytic can do. But I'll pause here. I know there's some more questions and we have time to field them.
Yeah, we definitely have a little bit more time. I have one question. It's a little bit specific, but one of our attendees says, we have done our research and even a few pilots that have had mixed results. We keep hearing from those who have had more success that you need to have a balance between accuracy and intelligence. What does Zenlytic do to satisfy these needs as we embark on trying this yet again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Go for
You
it.
want me to take this one? Yeah. So I think it actually is important to kind of split that into two categories, like the question outlined, which is there's kind of reliability and then there's intelligence. With reliability, a lot of companies have been rightly very excited about Gen AI. And a lot of the vendors in the market kind of have these wrapper solutions around LLMs that try to get them to do more than they're ready for. And that's often what we talk to when we talk about text to SQL. Text to SQL is essentially the idea that you take a large language model, you click an easy button, and you say, okay, large language model, I want you to go and I want you to get trained on all this company specific data. And then I want you to be ready and in a spot where you can go and generate SQL queries to answer questions reliably. That doesn't work. It's just, every academic paper that talks about that now and all kind of the trials that we've seen and the ways that this has actually happened in the field is that if we rely on LLMs to do more than they should, if we're just hoping that there's an easy button where we can say, okay, I'm going to take this large language model, throw it on top of our data warehouse and have it start answering questions, you're not going to get accurate results. The other is intelligence. A lot of these kind of text to SQL solutions aren't capable of answering the human questions that people actually ask, not the data questions that data teams want people to ask. And what I mean by that is in Zach's demo, he went through and said, okay, hey, Zoe, I'm brand new to the marketing team. I have no idea what data is in the system yet. But what I'm trying to do is accomplish this goal. I'm trying to understand how to better allocate our campaign and marketing channel spend. How do I go about doing that? And with a lot of solutions that aren't agentic and don't have ways to kind of reason and do the discoverability work and all the other stuff that Zoe's capable of, they can fall on their face. And part of enabling self-serve and democratizing insights or whatever else everyone's trying to use this technology for is you need to be able to deal with the very human questions that are often malinformed, because those are the questions that rely on an analyst to kind of guide you and say, hey, Zach, I understand you want to better allocate marketing and channel performance, but first I need to understand, how do you want to measure that? Do you want to look at this by ROAS or PROAS? Do you want to look at this by number of orders relative to marketing spend? Like, really help me understand how you want to attack this problem. And that's something we do pretty well. So yeah, I'd say the answer to that is one, reliability. You need a semantic model so that AI isn't writing code, because AI can't do that reliably. And two, you need a solution that can deal with real questions that are human and malformed and imperfect, because that's actually what's going to enable the next generation of self-service.
Awesome. I think we have time for one more question. And this one is, after all the other BI platforms are building natural language functionality into their systems, what makes you guys different?
I got this one. Okay, so I used to work at Tableau as a solution engineer, working with lots of big companies and whatnot, yada, yada, yada. And when I was there, we came out with this really cool feature. I remember when it came out, everyone was so excited about it, called Ask Data. And it was one of the ways Tableau was paving the way, a innovator in using natural language to ask questions of data. Now, when I brought this to my clients, I was met with no one using it, no one at all. And the reason being is the way people were forced to ask questions were, give me this metric, having to know the very specific metric by this exact dimension and needing to know the exact name of the dimension. And that's just not the way people ask questions. And so Zenlytic takes this a completely different way. It really should feel like a conversation. And not only should it feel like a conversation where I could say, hey, get me the revenue by, year to date and break it up by products. It's still in the same paradigm of asking a question that's a data question. And this is the first time that there is a natural language implementation talking to data in a way where we can ask high value questions, open-ended questions, ones that we're talking to a consultant at Bain or McKinsey saying, hey, could you help me out? What do I do? Where do I allocate my budget? That's not something we would be able to do in traditional BI. So that's what Zenlytic is really doing differently.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. I think that was our last question for today's webinar. So thank you, Drew and Zach, for presenting today. And thank you all for attending today's webinar. We hope you found the session valuable. And if you have any further questions or would like to chat more about Zenlytic or really anything that we've discussed today, please feel free to reach out. And thanks again. And we look forward to connecting you in the future.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.